for me, being a Jewish person, like you gotta step up. You're kind of someone people look up to in the Jewish community. You have to be like, all right, this is not normal, ha with the guys. People are coming in with real hate.
The discourse is getting dark in America, and what happened to Dave Portnoy is just the latest example. We're going to break this down, plus so much more, in today's episode of the Brad vs. Everyone podcast, my daily show, where we take on the craziest ideas from across the internet and social media, all from an independent political perspective. Up first, we're going to check in with the internet celebrity and Barstool Sports founder, Dave Portnoy, who is a controversial figure for a whole bunch of reasons. But one thing that's not typically very controversial that he does is his pizza reviews. And he goes around to different places, reviews the pizzas, uploads videos. I don't know. Can't say I'm a diehard fan of it, right? But this is a thing that he does. And he was doing one of these in Mississippi when somebody decided to walk by him and start yelling at him about the Jews and throw coins at him. Dave is, of course, Jewish. And it's just the incident has gone extremely viral. I'm going to show you what happened, but it's really disheartening and disturbing stuff. Take a look.
Oh, I like it. Hey, the Jews! You Dave Portnoy.
Not cool.
Why you come in the camera, buddy? Why you come here?
Oh my gosh. That was awful.
So, look, I don't know what to say about this beyond that it is just terrible. It's despicable. Sure, Dave Portnoy is a controversial figure for a bunch of reasons. You don't have to agree with his takes on anything. And look, I can respect a wide array of views on Israel and Palestine and geopolitics, but if you think it is okay to go up to another American and yell F the Jews at them just because they are Jewish, let alone throw coins at them, then you're sick. You're genuinely hateful and have hate in your heart to discriminate and abuse any group of people like that. And that would be just as true if it were Muslims or gay people or women or Christians or any other group of people. This is not who we're supposed to be as Americans. We believe in religious freedom. We believe in tolerance in the true sense of that word, where we live side by side and we don't belittle and attack each other just because of the immutable demographic traits we have or belong to. And it's not a one-off incident. It's part of a broader and disturbing pattern that I have seen, and I think anybody who's on the internet and now increasingly in real life as well has seen, and that is an uptick in anti-Semitism and hatred towards Jewish people. And it's not jokes. Jokes are one thing. I love me an offensive joke, and I think no group of people is beyond humor or beyond ridicule. But these are not jokes. Nothing about that was funny. Nothing about going up to somebody and throwing coins at them and yelling F you Jew at them is funny or a joke at all. This isn't stand-up. It's just anti-Semitism. It's just harassment in the street. But there is a rising group of people. I don't know. I don't want to assume, but the person who did this may well have been a part of the Groyper movement, a fan of Nick Fuentes, these people who are very open in their hatred and bigotry towards Jews, and they seem to think this is acceptable behavior. It's not. It's evil, it's classless, it's disgusting, and it's un-American. And I do think that it is on the rise. It's happened repeatedly to Dave himself. I'm going to go over some more details from this, and then a really shocking development that happened that I'm not sure I actually think is the appropriate response to this as well, and we're going to get into all of it after this. When it comes to the debate over LGBT issues, Americans increasingly live in different realities, and our media outlets do too. Just consider the story we talked about recently with the Trump administration seeking to uphold and bring to the Supreme Court its policy requiring sex at birth, biological sex, to be listed on passports, getting rid of the Biden administration's policies to let you put a non-binary gender marker on your passport, an X, and all that. Well, if you only read partisan media, left or right, you'd struggle to understand the full picture of what's truly happening with this story. Using Ground News, an amazing service I've used for years and used to help prepare this show, you can figure out what's really going on. It shows you what both sides are saying so you can make up your own mind, and it includes important information about a source's bias, factuality, ownership, and more. Back to this story about the Supreme Court and the passport changes. On the left, the Advocate's headline reads, "Trump admin asks Supreme Court to restore anti-trans passport policy." Meanwhile, on the right, the National Pulse covered the story as Trump seeks Supreme Court intervention on woke passport gender ruling. That's quite the difference. I knew the media was bad, but using Ground News to help bring you this show has really helped me see just how bad things have gotten. You can get the same plan that I use, which is the Vantage subscription, at the link in the description and on screen, ground.news/Brad. Also, the QR code is there on screen, and you can get up to 40% off the Vantage plan. This exclusive discount is available now through my link, so go ahead and break your bubble and sharpen your critical thinking skills by signing up right now. You'll be glad you did. So it's worth pointing out that this is not just a one-off incident of somebody harassing Dave because he's Jewish. Somehow, this has become like a regular occurrence or a common thing with him and other high-profile Jewish Americans. Here's Mediaite's reporting. Barstool boss Dave Portnoy tells CBS he's sickened by nonstop anti-Semitic barbs. It's every day now. Mediaite reports on a couple other incidents where similar things have happened as well. A Temple University student was suspended in May after he had "F the Jews" put on a customizable sign at a Barstool bar in Philadelphia. The same slur was used yet again a month later during a pizza review in Toronto when a man yelled "F the Jews" at Portnoy. So that's multiple times his pizza reviews on the street have been interrupted by people yelling "F the Jews." That is not normal. What is going on? How does anyone think that's an appropriate or acceptable way to behave in 2025? Some of y'all spent too much time on 4chan, too much time on Reddit, too much time listening to freaks like Nick Fuentes who espouse this stuff from the safety of their mom's basement, but then you go out and actually treat people like this. What is wrong with some of y'all? Now, we do have a clip to take a look at from Dave discussing this broader issue in an interview with CBS. First, though, do make sure to subscribe, like, comment, all that. Remember, you can also send in your voicemails for our Voicemail Friday episodes, where I react to your woke horror stories, I give you advice on your personal life scenarios, and I answer your questions. The link to send in one of those is in the description. Now, let's look at this clip of Dave discussing the issue of anti-Semitism on CBS News. Take a listen.
I've seen in my own experience, just being Barstool, the difference between how much hate I get. I mean, occasionally you get a Jew or whatever. It's every day now. Like, there's a definitive shift in what's going on. So yes, now I for me, being a Jewish person, like you gotta step up. You're kind of someone people look up to in the Jewish community. You have to be like, all right, this is not normal, with the guys. People are coming in with real hate.
Now, Dave actually recorded this interview before the latest incident. So he really is just experiencing this stuff all the time. And you don't have to like him. You could think he's terrible, hate his opinions, hate his takes, think he's awful, but nobody should be treated like that just because they're Jewish. And I'd say the same thing if it were another group of people. But he makes an important point too. Like, this isn't people being funny. It's not jokes. It's not memes that we're talking about here, because I'm not one to be like, oh, you can't joke about that or that's offensive or anything like that. But we're talking about actual rising hatred and animus towards people. And you need to be able to separate this from the discourse about Israel. You are allowed to despise the government of Israel. You are allowed to criticize them, say whatever you want, and think they are horrible and terrible, but not bleed into supporting or making excuses for this kind of virulent and hateful anti-Semitism. Once you start doing that, not only have you lost any sort of moral high ground you were claiming, but you've also discredited your cause. I have always said that there is wide array of opinions and debates that could be held in good faith on issues related to Israel and Palestine. However, the failure to police out just anti-Semitism from the discourse hurts the anti-Israel side for sure, because it lets people dismiss the valid critiques as part of this anti-Semitic push, even though they're not. Many of them are not, but it is unfortunately caught up in this discourse, and it is not just unfair to our fellow Jewish Americans, many of whom are not even supporters of Israel's war in Gaza at this point, to lump them in or conflate their identity and their religion and their practices and beliefs with this foreign conflict and this debate over it. But it's also, compromises your own movement and your own moral high ground. So look, I think it's terrible. The one twist to this story that I wasn't really expecting, and I have more mixed feelings about, is the fact that the young man who did this has now been arrested. We're going to take a look at this reporting from TMZ. Dave Portnoy, alleged heckler busted, withdraws from university. This was published just yesterday afternoon, so November 10th. And they said, a Mississippi State University spokesperson tells TMZ Patrick McClintock is no longer a student at the university. A source with direct knowledge tells TMZ McClintock withdrew from the university Monday evening. So we're going to get into the fact that he was arrested and the criminal allegations and all that. But I just wanted to stop on this for a moment. It's like, great way to destroy your own life, bud. Like, was that moment worth it for you? Because even if the legal charges don't stick, and I don't believe that they will, your name and face is going to be associated with this senseless act of anti-Semitism. They probably told him withdraw or you'll get expelled. And your life is going to be turned upside down by this. All for what? So you could berate someone on the basis of their faith? This is the kind of edgelord behavior that, whether they admit it or not, the Nick Fuenteses of the world have encouraged and promoted. And it's not just evil on its own merits, which I think is obvious to anybody without hate in their heart. It is also fundamentally self-destructive. This person's life is now going to be much worse because they did this, no matter what happens with the legal charges against them. Nobody wins here, but great job. Great role models we've got for some of these young men in America. And maybe he's not a Fuentes follower. I don't know. I'm not saying that with certainty. But the principle applies broadly here, even if we don't know if it applies in this specific case or not. Now let's get into the criminal allegations and charges against this young man. Again, reporting here from TMZ. The young man accused of throwing coins and yelling F the Jews at Dave Portnoy outside a Mississippi pizza shop has been charged in the high-profile case, TMZ has learned. Brandon Lovelady, public information officer for the Starkville Police Department, tells TMZ officers arrested 20-year-old Patrick McClintock on Monday and charged him with disturbing the peace. As for the alleged crime, Lovelady tells us, every person has the right to feel safe and respected in our community. Offensive words alone are protected, but when behavior disrupts a public event or risks violence, the Starkville Police Department will take steps to help maintain safety and security. Here is where things get incredibly dicey for me, because some of what the police officer says here is wrong. Sorry, but hate speech is free speech in America, and nobody has a right to feel respected. That's a subjective feeling, and other people have a right to be disrespectful or rude or nasty to you. What complicates this is that this guy threw coins at Dave. And so throwing an object at somebody, I could see how that could result in a criminal charge. However, it doesn't sound like that's even what they're charging him with. This disrupting the peace issue. What does that mean? Walking by and yelling someone at hateful, just those words, that is free speech. That's protected First Amendment activity. And if that's what they're trying to crack down on with this arrest, then it's not going to stick. It's not going to be constitutional or legal. And it's not actually valid. It's censorship at that point. Even if something is evil, even if I think what this guy did is despicable, simply yelling F the Jews at someone is free speech. Hate speech is free speech. And that's just the truth. I mean, you have a right to be nasty and rude to people. Now, I think the complicated factor is that he threw something at Dave. So maybe that is where this avenue of criminality is going, but it's messy. And I don't really think that legally trying to crack down on this is the best approach. In fact, it unfortunately, I think, bolsters the narrative of the anti-Semites and actually probably makes this guy seem more sympathetic to some of them. And maybe his new arc will be he'll be a new America First influencer, for goodness sakes. I mean, you already have anti-Semitic voices like Dan Bilzerian tweeting, they are now arresting people for criticizing Jews. Now, of course, this guy did more than criticize Jews, but you can see how a story like this will be taken as further proof of their idea that Jews control everything and you're not allowed to say this. Of course, you are allowed to say pretty much whatever you want about Israel and about Jewish people. But however, this specific incident, because of the heavy-handed way it's being handled, I think will play into those misconceptions and falsehoods and just make everything worse. I don't think it will make things better to try to prosecute this guy over this situation. Plus, his life's already, been destroyed and changed irreparably because of it. So I think that part is messy and not something I necessarily support. But I do have a lot of sympathy for Dave Portnoy and other Jewish people who are going through it right now. I think whatever your views are on Israel, whatever your views are on these public policy questions, we should never lose sight of the fact that it is fundamentally un-American and evil to hate people just because of their faith or their ethnic background or anything of that sort. And I think this is on the rise. I think this sentiment is not going away. We need to confront it head on. So this story about Dave Portnoy was very dark to me, very concerning, but hopefully people can come together and draw a line in the sand and say that this is not who we are, not in this country. That's my take on it all, but y'all will have to let me know what you think in the comments below. Do make sure you're subscribed, hit the like button, and all of that.